Another rather iconic model that pretty much anyone who's watched the anime or played the early GBA games may or may not recognize. It's one of the original masters of passive-aggressive battle tactics. It is FLY00 Pastel Fairy, with a kit of triple shoot trap, float legs, and the leg ability of Fairy Charge, which grants a fill to Metaforce gauge relative to the number of plants or traps on the field at a time. Now, as a model available in the permanent banner, Pastel Fairy is someone that you can very easily get a hold of within your first couple hours of playing it, even at the very latest, given how common she is in pretty much any banner you pull from, be that the permanent banner or a pickup banner. But, despite her being one of the relatively original masters of passive aggression, she has certainly changed her tune just a little bit in recent years to make herself more specialized in one particular instance. Shoot Trap on all three parts is a setup-based skill that, once placed on the field, will check any enemies using shooting-based skills while active, and if triggered, it will deal passive-aggressive damage to them just for using a shooting part on that turn. Now, it is also worth noting that while traps can certainly expire on their own after a certain number of uses, in this case it is also worth noting that traps can also break things, which is a very good way of, even coincidentally, canceling an enemy's turn by breaking the part they were going to use. Now, having it on all three parts will most certainly limit what Pastel Fairy can do on the field compared to other things that other trappers could do, such as Trap Spider or Shoot Spider or Booby Spider or pretty much any other passive aggressor type like them. But all the same, traps are one of those rare relative and niche things that may not seem like much at first glance, but in the rare instance you will need them, might possibly be that saving grace to turn the tides around. Plus, the leg ability of Fairy Charge actually makes it to where for every plant or trap that's used, she grants a little bit more of a Metaforce charge to herself, which means that if she's not placing traps, she can possibly nuke you with a Metaforce spam or even a team buff whenever she's not laying traps or resetting them. Now, when it comes to armor department, she is relatively par for the course as expected of a female type model, with a head of about 2700 HP, arms about 2550 each, and the legs at about just shy of 3000. Relatively moderate, kind of a middle of the road based HP pool, but pretty much expected for what you'd figure of a female type. Now, since Shoot Trap is a passive-aggressive skill, it does not pack a base power or a success stat, because you are guaranteed to place the plant down no matter what, and damage is fixed once the plant goes into place. But she does have a moderately high heat and cool stat between the high 600s and the mid 700s each, so she will have a relatively decent time running to the line to put those traps in place. Leg stats, even if they are moderately low, are actually kind of in that nice little well-rounded range, where at first glance it may not seem like much, but it is also worth noting as a reminder that float legs also get A rank across the board, minus S on Cyber, and get an extra 10% to each stat. With a melee resist of 805 and a shoot resist of 826, base stats certainly don't look too promising, but again, that is before any modifiers come in and boost those higher. An evade of 984 isn't too shabby, and a mobility of 652 is kind of in that nice little mid-range of where you want mobility to be. Now, even though these stats are still moderately low, it does mean that despite any other bonuses that may come into effect, be it from terrain or meta rodder or anything else of the like, it will be moderately easy to inflict a pretty fair amount of punishable pain on this particular model, just because it is rather light on the armor and even lighter on the resist stats. All this being said, as a pure set score, I still do have to rate Pastel Fairy a pretty flat 4 out of 10. That's not to say that she's bad, but she is very specialized in canceling shoot-based enemies. So that means anyone that's coming in to get up close and personal in her space most certainly will bypass those traps as if she effectively wasted her time there doing nothing. Plus, Fairy Charge is nice, but it's only worthwhile the more plants or traps that are on the field. And if she can only place one shoot trap, she's not going to be getting a lot of a bonus back to herself unless you can mix it up, her kit. That being said, as mixed parts, I do have to rate her just a little bit higher at a 5 out of 10. Given that even though raising all three parts for Shoot Trap definitely isn't in your best interest, It may not hurt to have 1 or 2 on hand as a just-in-case scenario, even if you raise it just to 3-star and call it a day. Now, if you did want to capitalize on the Fairy Charge leg ability though, you could definitely do so by mixing it up a little bit. Now, even though you can only put 1 trap or plant on the field at a time, you could perhaps mix it up to, say, using 1 shoot trap and then maybe charge plant or first aid or heater or cooler boost or whatever, or something of the like, and that can definitely help you capitalize on that Metaforce fill even more, as you're placing a trap and a plant on the field, and neither of which will interrupt or override each other.